Today, we're going to talk about drills. So here I have two different types of drills that we use in our shop. This is a standard drill, and this is an impact drill. Okay, both of them are available to you. However, we're going to spend most of our time focusing on the impact drill because that's the one that we're going to use the most. So, a couple things to know about this. Obviously, it is cordless, so we're going to need to get a battery. Okay. Here I have a battery for one of our impact drills. This is a newer one that we have. They don't all have this feature, but this one has a feature on the front where I can push a button, and now this lights up to show me how much battery is left. Okay, so that's a little bit handy for these long life ones. And the shorter ones, the shorter life ones, the older ones we have, they don't have that feature, but this battery we should be able to use all day long without having to charge it. I will say a little bit of product placement here. This is a Makita drill. We've had these for almost 10 years and they get used for hundreds of hours a week, and they've never quit on us. So love these drills if you ever need to go buy one. Pretty inexpensive, very, very high quality. Okay, so to put this battery on the drill has a slot at the bottom, okay, and the battery has slots at the top, so you just take this from the front of the drill and slide it in until you hear it click in place. Now that's not going to come out, okay. One little handy thing about these drills is here it has a little metal piece that can be used to hang it onto your waist when you're walking around. You don't have to carry it. That's a nice little feature as well. Okay, so on this drill, another little feature that it has that's handy for us. In the theater, we work in the dark a lot. Either we're backstage fixing something in the dark, or we're underneath a platform where there's not light, or even on our stage in the auditorium, the lighting's pretty bad as far as a working area. So these drills have a little LED light on the front. When you pull the trigger, it engages the light, and it'll stay on for about 5 or 10 seconds after you let go of the trigger. So that's really helpful when you're trying to put screws in the dark, especially since a lot of screws are either dark green or black and hard to see in the dark. So this drill has what we call a hex shank adapter. On the end of this bit, it has a hex-shaped shank on the end of the bit. So that allows this bit to lock into place on the drill. Okay. Our one for driving screws also does. Okay. They all have that, and that works with this drill. That will not work with the standard drill. They work in a completely different manner. Okay. So first we're going to start with a Phillips bit. Okay. This is for a standard screw that most of you have probably seen before around your house, a drywall screw. Okay, they're generally black. They come in lengths anywhere from 1/4 of an inch all the way up to 4 inches. Although if you get a 4-inch screw, you're probably going to break it before you get it all the way in. So generally, 3 inches is pushing your luck for most people to use them, unless you pre-drill a hole. Okay, so with our drywall screws, a couple things to know about them. These are made to hold drywall. That's why they're called drywall screws. Okay, this is not made to hold weight. Okay, so if you're needing to hold together something that looks pretty, a drywall screw is great for you. However, most of what we're asking you guys to build in our class is not just to look pretty, but also to support weight of multiple actors standing on it at the same time. So we try not to use these screws unless we have to. If we ever use a drywall screw to support something that supports weight, we are also going to go back and add bolts to it. Okay? This screw is not made to handle pressure going this way. It does not have shear strength that's very high. And in fact, if I had this screw screwed in right now, and I got a hammer, if it wasn't all the way in, and tapped the edges of it, it would snap off. It's designed to do that, okay? So that will bury the part that stays in it into the wood, and the rest of it will snap off cleanly. We won't have any metal sticking out, most likely, okay? But as far as building platforms and stairs and ramps and things that people are going to walk on, drywall screws are not the answer. We have these because a lot of times we do things with styrofoam, and we can use these to hold them on. They are much cheaper than the other screws we use. But this has a Phillips head bit. So a Phillips head bit is what most people have at home. At home you have a slot head bit or a Phillips head bit. Slot head is simple straight line, and a Phillips is more of a cross, one up and one down. Okay? And that's what the screw has on the end of it, is a Phillips bit, a Phillips head. So I got a Phillips head bit for my drill. Now, with this drill, it does not work like a standard drill. I've already told you that. If I take my bit and I try to put it in, okay, that bit looks like it is in place and working. And if I pull the trigger, it does spin. However, that bit falls right out, and that's not good because as soon as I turn upside down, now it's falling on the floor. Okay, so on the front of the impact drill, there's a little spring-loaded circle, metal circle, okay, and that metal circle pulls forward. When you pull it forward, you can drop the bit in there farther, and now I can even pick up the drill by this bit, and it's not going to fall out, okay? So, pretty easy. Another thing to know about the drill, there's a little button right here by the trigger, right there, and that tells it to go forward or reverse. It goes through to both sides, okay? If I'm right-handed, I put my hand on it, grab it like a pistol, okay? If the index finger side is in, that means that this is going forward, okay? It's turning clockwise, which will push the screw down. If I switch and push my thumb in, now I have put this in reverse, and it will pull the screw back out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in forward, push the index finger in, I'm going to take my screw, put it in the piece of wood, and hold the top. Now, on a long screw, you have to hold it longer. You have to hold it till it gets nice and in there. If you don't hold it and you just do this, the screw is going to wobble around, and it's not going to go in the wood. So you have to hold it to get it started. On many of the long screws, the top ½ inch or so will not have a thread on it. That way you can have it spin in your fingers and not have it tear up your fingers or give you metal splinters. However, problem is with that, when you use a thin piece of wood like Luan, if you're using the wrong size screw, you may put it in and never be able to get it out, because if you've taken off the area where it can grab into something to pull back out, then the screw just spins. So you have to have the right size screw for the job. Okay, so I'm going to put this one in. Really simple, hold it in place. You don't have to worry about getting your finger because you're in control of the drill, and you're not going to push that hard, and you're not going to push to the side, and you have complete feeling of it. And if anything, you don't have to move this hand holding the screw. When it starts to go awry, you just lift your hand with the drill, and then there's no way that you can hurt yourself. Okay, so hold the screw in place. A little bit of trigger pulls to get it started. Now it's kind of in there. It's sitting just off the top. I don't know if the camera shows that or not. But now I can clear my hand and... Okay, now you heard a little bit of a weird sound. Some of you may not be used to that sound. You heard it. That's why this is an impact drill, not a standard drill. So the way a standard drill works, when you pull the trigger, it applies electrical current to the motor, which then turns a gear and just keeps turning that gear, okay? And these are nice drills because the more you pull the trigger, the faster it goes. If you buy a cheap drill, like at Harbor Freight or Walmart or something, and let's say it's a drill that's less than $70 or $80, then it's definitely not going to have that feature. When you pull it, it's either full on or full off. But with these, they're variable speed. When you pull the trigger, you can control how fast it spins by how far you pull the trigger. So I'm going to pull a little bit. It's turning very slow. If I pull faster, you can hear the difference. That's at full speed. Okay? With the impact drill, it does not have a gear where it just constantly turns when you pull the trigger. What the impact drill does is it has a hammer that pushes a gear, and as you pull the trigger, that hammer, it pushes the gear round, 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 round. So that's a lot better if you're doing screws. Now, if you're drilling holes with a regular drill bit, that may not be the best for you. But when you're doing screws or when you're using a paddle bit, then that is awesome for you. So what happens is with this one, if I'm drilling a hole and the drill bit gets bound up, maybe the bit is dull. Don't use dull bits if you can help it. Dull tools are dangerous tools, okay? If you have a dull one, throw it away, we'll get a new one, okay? But this will start to spin on me and it will try to do this. And one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to let go and give up, or I'm going to keep fighting it. If I keep fighting it, it's going to twist my arm and possibly hurt me, okay? So, with the impact drill, you don't have that issue. The impact drill, since it's little spurts of power instead of constant power, it won't torque on you and try to twist your wrist or twist your body, okay? Also, it has more power, even though it's the same battery, because it's not applying constant pressure. It applies it in little spurts, so it can give a little more energy with each spurt than it can give on the regular drill constantly. So, okay, now I'm going to take this one back out. So, take this one back out, push in my thumb, because I'm right-handed, okay? Now this button on my thumb side is in. And I'm going to pull it out. Now, here's the biggest mistake that new people make. They think when they're putting a screw in, they push in, and when they're taking a screw out, they pull out. Is that what you think? That's wrong, okay? When you're pulling a screw out, you still push in. It sounds counterintuitive, but when you're pulling a screw out, I'm going to push in, pull the trigger, it comes out. I have to keep pressure on the screw or else the bit can't connect to the head and there's no way to have it turn. If I'm pulling away, then I'm pulling this away from the screw, there's nothing to grip, so it won't work. So it doesn't matter if I'm going in or out, the screw, I'm pushing down on the drill. Now I don't necessarily have to push down as hard on the drill, but if you have a good screw, you shouldn't have to push down hard anyway. If you're having the bit slip a lot, which happens with Phillips bits, then you probably either need a new screw or a new drill bit. You need to look at the head of both and see if they're good or bad. Okay. So, another thing when I put in this screw, I'm going to do it again. Okay. I want the top of this screw flush with the wood. I don't want it sticking up from the wood. I don't want it buried into the wood. A lot of times people bury it into the wood. Okay? You think, wow, it's really in there. It's holding strong. Yes, it is, but you may never get that screw out. It's very hard to get it out when it's buried into the wood. Okay? So you want it flush with the top of the wood. You may have also heard this sound, which sounds kind of like the impact drill sound, but a little higher pitch. That means you're not putting enough pressure and this is not gripping to the screw, which is going to destroy the screw and the drill bit head, and you probably will never get that screw out. We'll have to do some fancy things to do that. So if you hear that noise, you're doing the wrong thing, stop. Okay? If you can't get it to work, have someone help you. It does take a little bit of time to get used to drilling. Okay, so now we're going to switch bits and switch screws here. So to switch the bit, I'm going to pull this little metal ring out and then pull my bit out the front. Okay? And I'm going to do the same thing to put this other bit in. Now this is what we call a star bit here. That's not a technical term. If you were to go anywhere else in the world, they would call it a Torx bit, a Torx screw and a Torx bit. Most people would call the screws a deck screw. Okay? This is what we are going to use primarily for building structures. Okay? The reasons are, one, you're not likely to get that sound of the bit stripping the head of the screw because it's got so much better grip. It's not going to do that. We've been using these here at Boyd for about 6 years, and I've never successfully seen someone strip a screw without really being conscious about trying to strip a screw. So if you come to me and say, oh, I stripped a screw, I know you did it on purpose, because it doesn't happen. It's impossible. Okay, these are great for high school students because they grip so well. The other reason we use them is these are made out of a different type of metal alloy. The drywall screw, I told you, has no shear strength practically, and it's easy to snap them if you put pressure on it going down, so we don't use them to hold weight. However, a deck screw, or a torque screw, is not like that. This is very, very strong. If you think about it, if you have a deck built onto your house, generally that's elevated off the ground and people are walking on it. You may even have a hot tub on it. So a hot tub full of, let's say, 800 gallons of water is 4,200 pounds. Then you're going to put a couple of people in that hot tub. You may be approaching 4,500 pounds, 4,600 pounds of weight on your deck in one small area. You want something strong. So these screws are made to hold a lot of weight, okay? So we will use these for every time we're building stairs. We will use these when we're building platforms. We will use these when we're building furniture. Anything that's going to hold people's weight, we're going to use deck screws, okay? Now, I said if you're going to use drywall screws, then you need to go back and reinforce that with bolts. There may be an issue or a time when you want to reinforce something made with deck screws with bolts. However, I'm going to tell you that's very unlikely. If we're going to do that, it's going to be something that is very long without supports, like meaning legs or something under the platform to hold it up. In most cases, you can just add more deck screws, depending on the situation. But you really don't need to add bolts. However, we like to be safety first, safety last, safety always. So we'd probably go ahead and add some bolts a lot of times anyway. But these are really strong, they're made to hold it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one in, same exact procedure. I'm going to put it here. You can see on this screw that I actually do have the top ½ inch that's not threaded. You might not be able to see that with the camera, but the top ½ inch is not threaded on this screw so that I can hold it, because it is longer, and then screw it in. So I'm going to do the same thing. Now, at the end, this one did not go all the way in because I used a long screw on a thin piece of wood. So my problem is that it may not come out. I got lucky and it did. Okay, woo, that's hot. Another thing to know about the screws, when you pull them out, they just came out of a tight hole by using friction. Friction holds them in place. So now this is really, really hot. Many students will burn their hands grabbing screws that are hot. So sometimes you want to pull it out and let it sit for 10 or 15 seconds so it can cool off before you grab it, because they're not going to be like red hot metal that will burn through your skin, but I have seen multiple people have welts on their hands and need to go get ice and get some treatment because they've grabbed a hot screw or a hot drill bit. So keep in mind that it's a hot item. It can hurt you, okay? Yeah, and then you should be okay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take this bit out as well. Okay, so my next bit that I have right here is called a paddle bit, okay? This is a type of drill bit that will drill holes for you, but it is going to drill a little bit bigger holes than what you would have with a standard drill bit, okay? Paddle bit, you can get them anywhere from, let's say, 1/4 inch, ½ inch, all the way up to 2.5 inches. If you need a hole that's bigger than 2 or 2.5 inches, then you're going to have a different type of bit that drills big holes. You could go up to 6, maybe even 8 inches, but not with this drill. Okay, but paddle bit is really helpful because, like I just said, if you're using screws, sometimes you might need bolts to reinforce. Well, bolts have to have a hole to go into, so that means you have to drill a hole for the bolt to fall in. So, with this one thing to know is it's going to kick up sawdust or drill dust, let's call it. It's going to kick up chunks of wood. So before I use that, I'm always going to want to put on my safety glasses and make sure I'm not going to get wood into my eyes. Okay. The other thing is, I have a trash can here underneath. That's going to make my life easy for cleaning because I won't have to sweep or vacuum when I'm done. If you're doing this somewhere where you don't have a trash can underneath you, then that means at the end of your build or at the end of class, you need to get a dustpan and a broom and or a shop vac and clean up your mess when you go. Because we don't want to leave a mess laying around for the next group to clean or for people to walk on. So now I have my paddle bit in and I'm going to drill a hole right here in the front of this piece of wood. You might be able to see there's a lot of sawdust right there on the front of that. I will still have to sweep up just a little bit around me, but not so bad. But now I have a hole that I can stick my finger down into if I want to, that I can put a bolt in and bolt this to something else. Okay, so that's a paddle bit. Okay, so now we're going to take this battery off of this drill, and we're going to go to the standard drill. We're going to show you some of the differences with that. Battery slides on the same way as the other one did. However, in the front of this drill, we do not have a little metal ring that we can pull out to hold the bit into place. We have a plastic ring that turns to open and close a set of jaws. So this bit does not have a hex head on the front. It is more of just round. So there's nothing for this to grip onto if I were to use the impact drill. So when I put this in here and I turn that outer ring, then the jaws tighten down on it, okay? And now I can hear a little clicky click sound. And I've got the drill bit in my drill locked in place so it's not coming out. This one also has a light on it. I'm going to drill a hole right here next to my other hole. And the same thing, this makes a lot of sawdust too. Anytime you're making a hole, you have to get rid of wood somewhere, and that wood's going to turn into little sawdust that you're going to have to clean up. So that's the standard drill. You don't want to use that for screws because you'll break a lot of screws and you will twist your wrist at some point if you're doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and take the battery back off and show you one more thing on the other end. So coming back to the impact drill, battery back on, take this drill bit out. And I'm going to put on this little socket bit to it. So sometimes we use what are called lag screws. Okay? A lag screw is kind of like a combination of a screw and a bolt. It is a screw. It does not have a Phillips head. It has like a little hex on it, 8-sided thing. 6-sided thing maybe, but it is thicker like a bolt. So if I want to lock down a piece of wood into the floor and it's going to have pressure on it, like pulling against it, then screws may not be the best thing because screws have very thin teeth on them to grab into things. But if something's going to have pressure pulling against it, trying to pull it out, not shear strength going down, but trying to pull it out, then you want a lag screw instead. We tend to use washers every time we have a lag screw, okay? Because we don't want to bury that screw into the wood, and it will bury. And if that buries in, there's no way to get it out, because the way this bit works, it puts a circle around the screw, and if I can't get the head around the screw, then I can't get it back out, ever. So we have to use a washer with that. So now I'm going to take that and screw it in as well. Sounds like I'm changing a tire to NASCAR. Okay, so there's that. Now here's the thing with this. It's not going to sit flush. So you need to be careful where you use lag screws because it is going to stick up off the top of the wood. There's no way around that. You have to have it stick up. If you don't have where the bit can grab a hold of the screw. So that's just the way it works. And so it will have something stick up. So you don't want to put that where people will trip.